Mr. McGuire, McGuire Media. We are going to go through our Photoshop process. So I've used the snipping tool, the Windows key, the Shift key, and the S key, and I've selected the video portion, and now I'm doing the audio portion as well. So what we're going to do today is we're going to learn just the basic workspace on Photoshop. So let's go to our Adobe Creative Cloud, go into our Start menu, and let's open up Photoshop. Now this will take a little bit of time to do. Make sure you have it installed. Because of our processing speed on our PCs, this will take a minute, but once it's open, you should be able to work it fairly easily. So this is the beginning of the window. When Photoshop opens, it gives you some start from scratch template, just a few things that you can do. When we're talking about upscaling an image that maybe is a little bit less quality, you can upscale the quality and things like that. So last but not least, you can also drag and drop from your desktop. So like I can close everything else out. If I were to have a picture on here, and I'm not sure that I do, got a couple videos, but if I had a picture, I could just drag it right there and it would be ready to go. So I'm going to maximize this using the Minimize Maximize tool. I am going to hit New File, and I'm just going to open up a, let's go Photo, let's see, Print. Let's just do a letter size, 8.5 by 11, something that I can print out on a regular sheet of paper when I'm ready to go. Everything over here, it is very important as you go through this to make sure that you label everything. And my recommendation, like so today is January the 27th, 2026. So I'm going to put 2026. I'm going to put 1/27, okay, which means 2026, January 27th. That way, if you label things that way, then they'll be chronologically ordered. This is our size, and this is our orientation. We can go landscape. We can go like vertical orientation and the white background and so on and so forth. So let's create. And this is our menu. So I'm going to close that right there. And I'm just going to go over a few things really quick just so you can see the process. Okay, so basically, this is our menu bar where you go file and, if you want to import something, if you want to export something, like typically if we finish a project, we'll export as, and so on and so forth. If you need to edit, these are all, there's so many different things you can do here. This has to do with your image and how you can adjust your image, the layers, very similar to Adobe Express as we discussed in class. And then the type, the selection tool, tons of filters you can add to your pictures or your designs, your view, different plugins that can be used. And, this right here is like, for example, if I were to uncheck color, then you see that the color menu went away. So it's important to know how to access your windows. Like you could add brushes, and you see the brushes pop up. You could add, so if you're wondering how to add or take away different things, like this is our layers right here on the bottom right. So if you look at that, but there's a lot of things that you can add to this to navigate. You got character, so like if you're trying to do something with text and you want to go in, this is very important to know how to access your windows on your screen. Now, the fact that you have a really large workspace on your screen, there's a lot of things you can do. Like, for example, this is the essential workspace. Now, if you want to do a photography workspace, that changes. Okay. So if I want to go back and change it to the essential workspace, you just need to know how to navigate Photoshop. It's very, very, very important to learn how to navigate and spend some time trying to figure out what you want to do and how you want to arrange things. You got all these different things, but you got to be mindful too. The things that are defaulted, like color, layers, and properties, probably are how you need to start each time. Okay. So now that we have covered right here, these are, again, menu bar. These are the option bars right here where you go normal, fixed ratio, all these different things up here. That's the option bar, if you will. And then on the left are our tool palettes. So you have your selection tool, you have your selection brush tool. So I click and hold, then I can access all of these, right? I click and hold, I can access all of these. Like the magic wand is pretty cool, actually. It's a pretty cool little tool to use. This is your crop tools. Okay, you can do a lot of different things with your crop tools. So as you go through, it's good to go through here as you're watching this, okay, to ensure that you understand how to access all of these um, different types of tools. The brush tool, you'll use that a little bit more. The stamp tool, the cloning stamp tool is actually pretty cool to use. We'll get into that at some point. The brush tool, and this is a very important one, the eraser tool. You'll need to erase some things. The gradient tool, that is if you wanted to, do some type of gradient in the background and make it, a certain color. Right now I've got it set at black, but I can do a gradient, okay? So again, I'm going to hit Control Z to undo, Control Y to redo if needed be. But in this case, I'm just going through all of my tool palette. It's what it's called, the tool palette, to ensure that you understand the process, okay? And then we'll get into the shortcuts. Now, I do have some shortcuts listed on the whiteboard that can help you. This is your palette that you can actually go in and change, and it's called a swatch, right? So if you wanted a certain type of color, then this is your hex code. If you wanted to change a certain hex code, like, that's, a black hex code or whatever, or a white hex code. So this is where you can access, your hex codes. So understand that process, okay? And so over here is a collapsible, what they call the collapsible palettes, where you can open them up or you can close them. So like, say if you want to see it, there's a lot to it. There's a lot that's here. So like if you want to collapse them, you can open them up to see what you're doing and close them down, okay? And you can add more things to this little right here, and you can open them up and see what they are. And you got brush settings, characters, all that stuff. So you'll eventually learn what that means. Like it says it's character, or if you just hover over it, it'll tell you what it is. If you just hover over it without clicking anything, it'll tell you what it is. So these are like brushes and all these different things. Okay. And then your palettes up here are very important. So this is your bar to get to look at your palette. So if I hit Control plus, I can zoom it in, Control minus, and zoom it out. So these are our swatches. This is our gradients. These are our patterns. All these different things we can do. So that's basically, in a nutshell, like the like what you can expect as far as how to access your window in Photoshop. It's very important, very, very important for you to understand how to manipulate and organize your workspace before you start anything. So that being said, kind of play with that. Make sure, again, go through color, layers, and properties, options, tools, context, and then, of course, I've got that selected because this is what I named it, right? Now, last but not least, we don't have anything on here, but I'm going to show you something very important. File. We're going to export as, okay? Now, you can do a quick export as a PNG, but I want to show you something. We export as, very similar to other, like Illustrator or something like that. Here's your format. So you can change that as a PNG, a JPG, or GIF. Okay, there's your size. Okay, remember it's in pixels, but it's an 8.5 by 11, like a size of sheet of paper. And then if you export it, when you export it, it gives you a location in where you can export it. Now, by saving it, this is like, it's very important. 2026, 127. It's a PNG. And when I export it, it's going to save it to that location. Now, if you so choose, you can have a folder on your desktop if you feel like you want to save it there. My recommendation, because we have a bunch of different Adobes, like for example, you click on Adobe, you have Premiere Pro, which we worked with, Photoshop Cloud Associates, I mean, at some point, you need to have a location where you know it's going to be saved every time. So, when I say this PC, this is where the C drive is where all your stuff is saved. It's a local, not on the cloud, not like Google Drive. It's a local saving. So, like if I wanted to add a folder here prior to, I could, or I could add it right now and add a folder to the desktop. Or in this case, it's in documents because, at some point you're going to have a ton of stuff. So let's go ahead and go view, or excuse me, new folder. And I'm just going to say Photoshop. Photoshop exports, right? So if you save it like that, then you know that I could, and I need to replace that and call it Photoshop, not photo exports, because that could confuse you because photos and Photoshop is different. You might just have basic photos. Photoshop exports. These are things that like files that I'm done with. I'm going to double click and I'm going to export what I just had. Okay, cool. So I'm going to go back. I'm going to go to my folder. I'm going to go to my documents. It's going to open up. It's all in Adobe Photoshop exports. There it is. Now, here's what you can do. Now that you have it saved in your documents, I'm going to, you can pin to start menu. You can put a shortcut on the desktop. There's all kinds of ways you can do it, So if you pin the start menu, it'll pop up down there. Okay, if you do a quick access, you can do a quick access. That's pretty cool. So but the key is making sure that you know where you saved it. And my recommendation is to have it in documents under Adobe. Okay, so you have Premiere Pro, you have Photoshop Cloud Associates, you got Photoshop exports. Okay, you can even go in here and we talked about raw footage and things like that. If you're working on Photoshop, we'll just call this Photoshop files. So anything that you're working with on Photoshop files. So Premiere Pro, everything is in 25. There's all my Premiere Pro stuff, right? So if I want to do all the different things, then you can do it like that. Here's the cloud stuff. So if I want to move those in there, because you only want one Photoshop folder, that way it keeps it clean. And then also when you do Illustrator, you can do the exact same thing, right? You can go here and you can go new and you can just call it Illustrator and then leave it like that. That way it's always in documents. So when you download things, you go to your documents, you go to your Adobe, you go to your Illustrator or your Photoshop files, okay? And those are the files you're working with. These are the exports, right? So you can always have what you need readily available. All right, so let's take a look at it under McGuire Media, and then we'll move on.